Anarcha server is a virtual machine in a data center, but also has a public interface in Kalafu. Sister server is a bare metal machine that goes back to her story of the gender changers, which was mainly focused on self-education and based on identity politics. And Lever Burns is a bare metal micro machine. And yes, if you visit it, you have to allow the risk. There is no certificate, but it is trustworthy because we know who's running the server. So we call ourselves feminist servers with distributed services, and we inhabit effective infrastructures. And maybe some people would ask themselves, what is this, a feminist server? And I think it's good to read the Feminist Server Manifesto 0.0.1. It's from the Feminist Server Summit already a couple of years ago, and some of us also were involved in the Transhack Feminist event in Kalafu. Each of these servers will define themselves differently and have different ways to create the narrative. And each of us also have speculative futures. So this panel advocates for a feminist internet and the need to empower its communities. However, our communities lack structural resources to enable feminist hosting platforms to become sustainable in a longer term. So we ask together in this panel why and how to. So hello, we are OOO. We are part as a moderator for this panel, and also Mara is joining us. And we would like for now that the different speakers we invited introduce themselves in a little 2 minutes, and also give resonance to the topic of the panel. So we would like to invite Mallory Knodel to do that first. And we have a little bit of a timer next to us, so if you surpass the 2 minutes, somebody of us will cough gently. Yes. So hello, Mallory, can you take over the microphone?
Yes, and is it okay that I use video? Nobody else was, but I'm happy to while I'm speaking anyway. So thanks very much for inviting me to this panel. It's been really nice to organize this. Talking about feminist servers is one of my favorite topics. So I think that's why I resonated with this. I myself have been a systems administrator for over 10 years, working on not overtly feminist projects always. And, currently I'm the Chief Technology Officer in Washington, D.C. at the Center for Democracy Technology. It's not an overt feminist project, but there are ways that we can always find, small things to work on together that intersect with that. So this is an example of that. I just worked on, or still continue to work on, a research draft in the Internet Research Task Force on feminism and internet protocols that has been an ongoing effort or labor of love for some years, and always looking for collaborators or folks that have insights into how we can sort of take the standards space and also then look at the societal standards, things that take a principled approach to how to design technology and learn something from them. Thanks, Mara. So yeah, I think just in general, having always been a feminist activist and also working in the technology space, it very much informs my political approach, I would say, is intersectional feminism. And so that is why I think it's important to approach also privacy issues from a feminist perspective, because I think there are some particularities that fall out of that I think we'll get into a bit later. Thanks.
Yeah, hello. I'm trying to also share my camera. Yeah, it works. Hello, and thanks a lot for inviting me to this panel. My name is Anne Mertens, and I'm representing Anaïs Berk. Anaïs Berk is an artist name that stands for a collective of humans, algorithms, and trees. It's a bit of an unusual collective, but it came together in 2019 as an artist research, and for the moment we're researching how we can install an algoliterary publishing house in which the algorithms produce automatically generated books, and the trees are the topics of the books. But the idea is that the trees also have a decision power in the algoliterary publishing house. So that's a big part of the research, and it brings us close to feminist theories, decolonial theories, the inclusion of more than humans in our making and thinking processes. So I think I'm here, or we're here, because a few months ago I sent an email to ask if we could somehow find a collaboration with the different feminist servers. And yeah, so I'll tell you more about this later. Thanks.
Nate, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. So I'm Nate, I'm a researcher, and I started to become part of and collaborate with the feminist servers, Anarcha server, and also Sister server and Lever Burns. And my interest in techno-feminist infrastructures initially stems from reading techno-feminist theory, especially the work of Donna Haraway. So I'm not strictly an artist or activist, but I'm an activist academic. And if I use language that you find unnecessarily complicated, please point it out in the chat and don't let me get away with it. So technofeminism is this bundle of radical traditions questioning technologies from a gendered point of view and questioning gender as it is produced by technologies. And it rejects technologies that do not work for us or work against us, not only because of gender, but because of intersectional power relationships. And it also articulates the need for a different internet, a feminist internet. And one of the most radical approaches here are feminist servers. And Spider Alex, who is a member of Anarcha server, once explained it very well. And I quote, "The internet is not an immaterial cyberspace. It's a network of cables, servers, and data centers." And I paraphrase to keep it short. Its architecture mostly follows a server-client model where servers host all kinds of different services like websites and email and video platforms, and most people with personal computers are using those services as clients. But most of the servers and a lot of the software are owned by a handful of corporations, and they are part of the extractivist and exploitative regime of techno-capitalism that feeds on our lives and on our data. And yet there is an alternative to that. There are some autonomous servers that run by their own standards and values, and feminist servers are part of that. I see them as an actualization of the techno-feminist critique of what the internet has become. And they are collectively run machines, they're self-organized, they independently host their own tools, and yeah, do all kinds of stuff, maintain archives, and are just in general a safer space online for all kinds of activism and for the arts. It's a lot of work and it's very precarious, but it's done by the principle of care. So for me, knowing that those infrastructures exist and that I can be part of it is really incredible, and I'm glad that we gathered here to talk about this.
Thank you.
And Madis now. No, sorry, Andrea Zappa. Yeah. We are running a little bit behind time, so I think we have to really speed up the introductions if it's possible. Thank you.
Hi. I thanks for this panel, and I participate to. Okay, I'm Andrea Zappa. I'm from Italy. Sorry for my Italy English. I speak better Italian, but for inclusion, we will try to use this kind of English. And I work in communication. I studied science of communication, and but in the last 10 years, I moved in developing. And I work as a front-end developer. For a political aim, I meet a feminist group in the street, and in my activity, I build a digital space, and I experiment in feminist server, in sister server. One topic that I spend the last 5 years on is learn how to build a physical network, mesh network, most with Wi-Fi antenna in countryside. So I address the topics of digital divide and the rights of communication media from the users, and also with a feminist perspective of this. I approach to the techniques for farmers, so most for analogic techniques, most than digital. Thanks.
Hi all. I'm turning on the camera also. I'm Madish from Madix, and I put here the link of the project. So we have built Madix because, I mean, as Nate said, we are every day using technical infrastructure, not only in our personal computer, but online. So I was tired of having to ask men how to do something, because the answer was never kind. So we decided to make it for us. Madix is a project that aims to simplify the administration of online services and keep total control over our data. So you have all the services you need, the online services on your own space where nobody can access but you. And so you can, with Madix, install a lot of applications just at the click of a button. But the thing is not only that, is that as somehow you still manage your own server, you go learning how it all works. And I think the difference, how it makes us a feminist provider, is that we love to answer to all the doubts that people have. So we can learn and understand how all this stuff works. It's not just a mystery, it's not something magic, it's just numbers, and communication. So we can step by step understanding how it works, and so be more autonomous and it's not like only using privacy provider, is really keeping control over your data and your applications. So we are really proud and happy to have done this.
Okay, thank you already for the introduction. We just want to mention also, we use this moment also in our feminist pedagogies as a test for using the restream function of our PeerTube. So you can go to tube.sisterserver.net if to test also whether this panel can be restreamed. And I give the word to Mara, who will introduce the first questions for this panel.
Yes, so thank you all of you very much for your introductory words. So we have actually four main questions that they will all help to think and reflect on our main theme of this panel, which is how does a feminist server nurture the shared realities of creatives and activists. And our first question is, a feminist internet is a marginalized framework within the digital rights movement. How can a techno-feminist critique feed the digital rights movement? And the question is for Mallory and the next for Nate.
Yeah, so I think of this question quite a bit. As I mentioned before, I'm sort of working on a draft in a technical community that looks at feminism and protocols, but that work is actually being done in a group that I chair that was chartered to look at human rights. So we realize that feminism is not the same framework as human rights framework, but except that there are some critical overlaps. I think on the one hand, and this is something that Nate mentioned much earlier, is there's a feminism sort of understands the special cases of additional oppression. So that's across not just gender, but sexuality, race, class, all these different intersections that can compound our ability to have our rights realized. And I think also feminism, because it isn't concerned with, I think human rights is concerned with, setting a baseline under which we should not go, although we realize that that's often never achieved. I think feminism isn't concerned with that. It sort of states the world or comes up with principles or ways of seeing the world as it should be, and doesn't necessarily lean into, I think, a common hierarchy that can be present. So I think where human rights, for example, can be compatible with an economic system like capitalism, I think feminism very often could not, because of the ways in which it deals with equality. So while I realize I'm only speaking about differences, I do think that is part of sort of the research and the analysis that feminists do, is to find those overlaps and to be able to speak to a variety of different communities, those that are focused on racial justice, for example, which is slightly different, or social justice, those focused on human rights, those focused on democracy, and other kinds of expressions. So that is the challenge. I think that's something that we always need to be striving for when we identify issues. So when it comes to privacy, since that is the real issue we have at hand here, I would say that there are particular expressions of privacy, the exercising of privacy that are different for folks who are targeted, marginalized because of their gender, because of their race, because of a variety of intersections. And we have to consider those as we're obviously building technology. I'll just give one very quick example, and then I want to hand it over to someone else who can speak. But this idea that we have ultimate control of very expensive devices, each individual one of us, and that this device is essentially an extension of ourselves. That isn't true. I think for folks who don't have access to expensive devices, for those who live in a more communal setting, for those who live amongst other people with other devices, those things have massive considerations if your threat model might be coming from the person that you share home with, or the person that has access to your device 24 hours a day. I mean, we have to consider that that is different for all of us. And so feminism might give us more of an insight into how to design private technology better than just looking at human rights. It's just a little bit, I think human rights can be just a little bit too general, whereas feminism looks at the points of oppression and then could help to inform a way to offset those issues. So anyway, that's my contribution. I'm looking forward to hearing what Nate has to say.
Yeah, I'm just going to join in. I was going to say a lot of similar things because I also think that human and digital rights and struggle for a feminist internet are both valuable for mobilizing against online exploitation and discrimination, but they're distinct, and you already said it. Feminist struggles are based on the knowledges and the embodied experience of women, of lesbian, inter, trans, and non-binary people living with technologies. So there are specific struggles, the struggle of finding information and adequate medical treatment, the need to narrate the story of invisibilized women and queers in computer and internet history, fighting cyberbullying and hate speech. And so the techno-feminist struggle is a struggle from within. It's self-organized. It's not primarily directed at the institutions or corporations, and it's not primarily a corrective to their bad politics from above, because it's just, like you said, it's about, Mallory, it's radically imagining alternative futures from below and doing that together and with care. So, yeah, I think problematizing the human rights framework is this challenge of looking out for the margins and to always acknowledge difference before assuming equality. And like historically, the feminist critique of privacy is a good example to demonstrate that. Privacy aims to protect all citizens equally, but if we look at it, the separation of private and public turned out to work really badly for women who were deliberately confined to the domestic sphere where male domination was naturalized. And I'm talking about the mostly white and middle to upper class women who organized in second wave feminism. So yeah, the right to privacy translated into very different realities according to your ascribed gender and economic situation. And of course, with the advance of data extraction fueled techno-capitalism, a lot changed, and this binary separation of public-private is a little bit outdated, but privacy concerns are more pressing than ever. And so yeah, I think from the techno-feminist approach, we can learn to question those individualistic ways of thinking, privacy as privacy self-management, or the famous privacy paradox where people seemingly act against their own interests. And yeah, the reason why is, how to rethink privacy in a techno-feminist way then would be to make it a techno-collective approach, considering also more than human aspects, also issues like the environment, do it with care, and fight asymmetric power relations. And I actually see this already happening when the discourse around privacy starts shifting towards information self-determination or even data sovereignty, and this focus on the conditions of being able to consent to the sharing of information. And I think that might be the effect of a techno-feminist critique. And so, yeah, I think there's still a lot to learn and to insist in technologies that take our diverse needs and embodied experiences into account.
Thank you, Nate. We can move to our next question. So the next question is, what are the tools for organizing our workflow? Well, I mean in the terms of having a feminist servers, feminist infrastructure. So what are the tools for organizing our work on these infrastructures, and in general around techno-feminist infrastructures? What are the terms of participation exclusivity? And I would like to hear from Madis, and then Andrea, and then Nate. Thank you.
Hi. So basically what we have used a lot during all our process in terms of tool for organization, for organizing this workflow, has been keeping into account all the needs that each different feminist organization have. I mean, we need to go on thinking about what everybody is facing, what they need, so that we can build a useful tools, we can build a useful framework. So, for example, from our experience in Madix, from when we started until where we are now, we had to change our milestones, our path, because of people that were using Madix. I mean, the community told us that they had different needs that we were not keeping into account. I mean, basically, what we need is knowing who we are and who we are talking to and who we are working with. For example, right now, I make a practical example because maybe it's clear, more clear. We are working a lot with South American organizations that are most of them are in critical politics situation, their country. And so most of them are very afraid, with their right to be, about attacks they could receive because from sexist groups, right-wing groups, etc. So they really need some tools, security tools, to protect their website, against DDoS attacks and things like that. So maybe in Europe, feminist groups are not so exposed to this kind of threat. And so, I mean, for us it's very important to have this feedback, because we didn't took this too much into account. You know what I mean? So if we want to build infrastructure that are useful for different feminist frameworks, I mean, this feedback was very useful for us. And the terms of participation, I mean, this goes within the other, no? I think this answer both, because, I mean, we can't build a tool that is just in our mind and it just fits into our needs. The good thing is that we have a lot of mailing lists, a lot of spaces where we can share, and I'm old style in this sense that the old mail list is always the most useful to know what's going on among us. I don't know if I answered the question, but that's it.
Yeah, thanks. But I think just an extra sub-question would be, do you have any type of decision-making in your foundation or, let's say, organization?
Yeah. Yes, because when we start a new, I mean, normally the decision we have to take are quite technical. I mean, do we add this application or this other one? And when we decide this all together, of course, but most of the time starting from what the community asks. So that's why I started with the previous theme. I mean, they are not decisions just among us, but of course then we evaluate if it makes sense, if it's technically possible, if compared with how much it would cost in terms of money and also human resources. But most of the time we add things because the community said they need, so, and then internally we decide all together. We are not only women, there are also men, and even if, it's good because the decision is not only technical, is like a mix. So
and how many there are the active people in your organization?
We are 2 persons that work all the time on the project, but then we do collaboration depending on what we have to do. So we collaborate with people that, they also do other things. They are not only doing that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think we have to go to the next speaker. So Andrea, please, could you also elaborate on the same question? What are the tools for organizing our workflow and decision making in feminist servers?
Yeah, I speak about the feminist infrastructure, not only server. I followed the idea to build a feminist group, build feminist services, and build a feminist network, physical network. Okay, cables and antennas and this. So I have 3 different representation of the problems, like, and I try to have always a bridge between these three organizations. With a feminist group that reclaims rights in the street, we try to use a consensus method. We do meeting and we try to respect the idea of the other and speak enough, but speak to arrive to take decision without dub. So consult all the point of view to arrive to decide something. So is slow when you don't know a lot the other people, but became faster when you know with the other and when the relationship is long in the time. And is the same to decide for the servers in the admin side, and is the same to decide in the network. In the network, we have not an admin side. We have users that contribute to build their network. And so, decide with consensus method is something that needs that you self-taught to you. So all the people that participate needs to study, and a lot of time together we need to take lessons, because we live in not in the best world possible. We don't live in a society where census method is used, and so sometimes we need help to keep our mind in a consensus method. Another part that is really strong is assertive communication, and also not to use passive-aggressive communication. That it's something that we put a lot of attention, because we find things marginalized group like us, that we are far. Some of us are farmer, are not urban, not in the city, and feminist. So a good collection of strange people. So it's we train ourselves to push our rights, so I think that one of the biggest action is build for us a safe space just in the street, in the squares, in the place that we stay physically, and in our network, and in the server services. Probably the most interesting part. No, I don't know. There is not a most interesting part. The three parts of the real of the services in the internet, and the other part of be in another internet. Because we build other net are changing and brings results.
So yeah, thank you for elaborating on it. And so I think we have a shared common interest in our feminist infrastructures. But of course, the big question is how can we sustain these feminist servers in terms of resources, whether it's models of funding or solidarity actions or the membership or client-based relations. So how can we sustain them in terms of resources? Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, sure. Yeah. But I think it's important because I feel I talk from another point of view. I think it's important to introduce a little the work we do, so that you have an idea of what the maybe more metaphorical needs could be before I can answer the question. Is that okay?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, nice. So yeah, I just want to show you one of the experiments we did. The idea is that we always take into consideration this space where human, vegetal, and artificial intelligences meet. And by opening this space and respecting this space with all the different entities involved, we encounter a lot of issues. But yeah, I'll first show maybe an example of a work we did when we were in residency in Madrid last year. Can I take the presenter's role here? Oh, I don't see a way to. Maybe I just paste the website and then you can do it for me. Or is there a way to take the presenter's role? No, don't think so. Ah, yeah. Okay. No, okay.
Maybe it's better just to paste the link that people can see it from their computer.
Yeah, I think it's best to paste the link, Anais, because we are running behind time already.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So if you go to this page, then you see the research we're doing. It's a one-year research, and I would like to show you the book, A Walk Along the Trees of Madrid. You can click on it in the right section. And there you see that you can actually choose what kind of data you're using to generate a book, and then you can generate the book on the spot. It's a Markov chain writing the book, so you get the narrative perspective of the Markov chain, where the book shows the poetic process of the algorithm using data from these novels and organizing then a walk along trees in a particular neighborhood in Madrid. The idea is that we create a publishing house using these kind of experiments. For now, the website runs on a commercial server, but you can imagine as we're looking at an inclusive space, we have very different needs. We would like to understand and get to know all the different algorithms. We would like to also work with consent of trees, whatever that means, and what kind of methodologies we need to invent for that. But that also means that it's important to be able to look at the carbon emission of a server, to be able to do experiments with more alternative and ecological energies. And in terms of what it needs, it's the Anaïs Berg comes out of a tradition of Constant and Domaine Public. Constant is an organization in Brussels for media and arts, also with a feminist methodology approach. And so for years we have been looking at how can we use, how can the infrastructure reflect also the philosophy of the organization. And so for Anaïs Berg, this is the same. How can the infrastructure reflect a non-extractive, safe space for inclusion for humans and more than humans? So these are quite large questions, and we're, through small experiments, we are trying to find answers to this. So it's a much more playful approach. I think then what the colleagues before explained, and it's super impressive, and I admire a lot your work. It's trying to get together different spaces and to make them somehow work. For the moment, we decided to install a server on our site, which will be a feminist server, but for, let's say, our project. So it will not be this kind of collective server where other people can host. But I think in the long term, what would be really interesting is to see how that can become part of a feminist server network, and what that means. More than humans in this network. I don't know. We are working with public funding and research, mainly research funding. So this allows for this kind of more experimental approach. And I don't know if that's really.
I think you resolved a little bit from your own need to have a feminist server, and actually you also are dedicated to find the resources to sustain it and to also expand and make links within the wider feminist network. Maybe it's also this is from an artist perspective and wider societal concerns. And I think Madish is with Madix. There is more the server who offers services. Can you also maybe try to work on this idea of the resources to sustain the feminist servers?
Hi, yes, of course. We were we didn't want to be too precarized. I mean, all the work we do, we want it to be remunerated. So we are a little bit against the voluntary framework, because otherwise then we have to go and work for Google, for example, to eat. So we decided to make Madix like a company that could earn money itself with its activity. And so we give services, we give hosting also. We do not only develop software, and this is how we get some income. We also have some funding, because we build projects which are basically building software or configurations that are open source and free. So we can put it at the disposal of the community, and for that we receive like help, some funding. So this is the combination. We didn't want only to be sustained on funding because it can fail. Our aim is to build in our internal community, people working with MADIX, to be paid for their work and to be autonomous in this sense. So we are not 100% yet in this situation, but MADIX is having incomes, and so I think this hybrid model is working for us, and it gives us quite a lot of stability. We started it in 2016, and we are still alive, and we are going better step by step. So we don't have donation because as we are a company, it sounds strange to us, but this would be also if we work on free software. I mean, the secret for me is working and publishing all the code so all the community can use it, and so you could also activate a donation model for having money to work on your project.
And Mallory, you have any ideas about the sustaining of the feminist servers in terms of resources?
It's a really hard problem. I think it's good to hear Maddox is trying to fix it. I think that it is difficult to sustain. So I would just add that I think that there is a spectrum of funding models. I'm particularly interested in just finding projects that are exciting, that we can learn from, that maybe are temporary, they only last a few years, but that they help to strengthen the movement, the feminist and technology movement more broadly, because it gives us something to work on together that can be funded, but that maybe ultimately ends. And again, like the learning goes back to the community. But I do think the problem of sustainability is really difficult. So, for example, one is, learning how, or asking a question, would feminists run VPNs be more secure? Or what are the qualities of those sorts of VPNs? If you gave, feminist collectives the tools that they needed to build them and then run them and use them for a while, what are the particularities of that? Is it different from other activist services? Is it different from corporate services? That sort of thing. And then hopefully that learning actually informs real developers. It informs funders. It informs the space, gives us some more data credibility when we say, the way that it's done for everyone isn't good enough. Those are the kinds of projects that I'm interested in looking at. But it doesn't satisfy. It doesn't help you eat, as Matt was saying. Like I have to admit that, but I think that we should be creative about trying to discover and research certain things, maybe within the context of more sustainable models, but that also we need spaces to simply just play for a short period of time, make something really concrete happen. And then try to make sure that isn't forgotten, that moment in time isn't forgotten.
Yeah, I think that leads us to our last question. Normally it's the moment that we would open it up, and maybe we can ask the question and then open it up, or run a bit over time. But what would we then imagine as policy or event or that could empower our mission? And find collaborations with like-minded political allies, aligned projects. Can Anna try to say something about it?
One of the ideas that a colleague of the collective came up with, Guillaume Snizovic, is a kind of book launch performance for the publishing house, where we would have a server on a Raspberry Pi, and this server would run either on solar power or on, the idea was actually more to have it run on the wood burning of an old tree, and to have the book lounge last as long as the energy is there. So when the energy is gone, then the book lounge is over and the server is dead. So it's a very playful example, but I think it might be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, it's like imagination from an artist perspective. Maybe also Andrea, who is on the streets and within the community and politicizing her activity, can also imagine something.
I like. I think that we have to do a big work on our learning skills and consciousness about feminist and intersection, and like we need a lot of, like, internet in this moment is more a big patriarchy propaganda, and we need a lot of other places that where spread different culture. So I believe that the meet in person is the best, but yeah, I know also that because build more trust and it's better, but I know that it's difficult. And I'm really happy of the experiment of today about restreaming in Peercast. I would like to spend 1-2 words about the fact that is peer-to-peer and is a technology that is developed to restream big contents, but with less bandwidth. Using a bit of bandwidth from the users. Every user uses a bit of bandwidth, but is a way to is an experimental way, but is technically it's interesting for a different organization, not for example server client, but peer-to-peer. And I think a good experiment.
Yeah, it's a good experiment. It's a technical implementation. So maybe Nate, from a more academic, theoretical, discursive environment, what would you imagine? Maybe in relation with feminist data politics, or?
Yes, I think what I'm trying with writing my PhD in this collaboration is already this kind of experiment on whether this could work, bridging like the academic and the activist. And yeah, so what I try to do is I hope to contribute in some ways also with the theory. One thing that really interests me are data politics, ways of handling data, imagining data relations that are different from the dominant paradigm of extractivist data capture. So, I don't know, I just take this moment to maybe also talk about the server-client relationship that was asked about earlier. Following the data manifest which says that feminist data politics are a refusal of an inheritance, and part of this inheritance is this language and concepts that are used to imagine and create relations between users and hosts and devices and systems. And yeah, so the server-client relation is problematic because it's binary, it's patriarchal, and it's commercial. And so what I observe is feminist servers and techno infrastructures and trying to work around those roles and invent new ones. And there is this very beautiful manifesto, and I'm not sure if it's online anymore because the free tech co-op Kefir was shut down. But it talks about the refusal of commercialized hierarchical idea of services, and it invites us to shift from the concept of services towards mutual aid and communal gathering. So yeah, this is kind of what I do also as a researcher collaborating. I'm trying to look into how techno-feminist collectives organize themselves differently and create those emancipatory relationships between women, trans, non-binary people, men also, but data and machines and other collectives. And yeah, so this is already, I think, an experiment to form this kind of alliance also with the university that has some resources that I can also bring on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice, I think, with our last question that you already opened to the audience and you make immediate aligned allies with the audience. Maybe it's also still nice, before we go more official to the questions, is to hear Mallory on the imaginative part on the policies which could empower our feminist pedagogy.
Is it a question that was in the chat?
I know it was not still one of our official questions, how to empower.
Yeah. Okay, no, I understand.
But if you want to react, if you want to react on a question which was in the chat, it's also good.
No, it's okay. Thanks for reorienting me. No, I guess I sort of said in my last intervention where I think that we do sort of sometimes need things to work on together, some moments of activity and, projects. So I'm really hoping to find something that does that. I think there are so many out there, and we think of them, I think, as maybe sometimes lasting forever, but they don't. And so I wonder if we can maybe iterate on that model sometimes by knowing that, we're going to do something together for a short time, and then we're going to get back to our day jobs or our lives and things like that. So it doesn't take so much pressure on keeping some things that are meant to be temporary, more permanent, but knowing that the movement itself is what's permanent. And we strengthen that by having flutters and flurries of short-term activity that gives us inspiration and gives us, data and research that gives us credibility and that sort of thing. So I'm interested in that. And of course, any sort of ongoing research that looks at internet and internet protocols is definitely within ongoing work for me as part of the Internet Research Task Force. So folks doing that should reach out and figure out how we can help to give a platform to that work and make sure it's visible. Thanks.
And Maddy, you still... thanks.
Can Maddy's quickly?
Well, I've nothing really to add. I mean, events are always welcome, and but in these times of COVID and so on, I just insist with the open source project, so what we do is not only for us, and I really believe in this, and so just publish and use what our colleagues are doing.
And maybe it's then the moment to see what were the questions inside of this chat, but because I think there is also a lot of colleagues there. Can you paraphrase some of the questions, Mara, which were circulating through the chat? Right, I cannot hear you, Mara. Can you open your microphone?
Sorry, yes. So, well, I think first question about the servers, I wouldn't call them gendered. I don't know if this is something we are focused on this panel. As gendered is also binary. So the question was if it's necessary to have gendered servers in terms of more privacy. And the other one was about sovereignty, if the concept of sovereignty is related to our panelists.
I can answer those questions quickly. So yeah, I also wouldn't call them gendered servers. They're feminist servers, but they're techno-feminist in that they make apparent the issues that come with a gendered reality. Even like it's often binary gendered, but I think there's also non-binary genders. Yeah, and I think we also went and explained a little bit of what these servers are and what spaces they can offer and why they're necessary. And yeah, I even mentioned it. I think then data sovereignty is, I think, used in many different contexts, but it's an important principle that I think is, yeah, helps us to grasp with the issues of privacy in a way that really looks into communities to empower them. It's, yeah, on a communal level, it's there is a discourse around indigenous data sovereignty, and so yeah, it connects.
And Andrea, would you like associate like the work you're doing with building of the community networks as a sovereign practice?
Okay. Sovereignty is a problematic word. I work in inclusive community. So sovereignty in the political term is, in philosophical term, is something to express exclusion. Who has the right to exclude others? So it's a problematic word because I build inclusive communities and that take the responsibility of transformation and insight. But yeah, we use, I'm inside of a community of farmers, and we use the term sovereignty of eating, so food sovereignty, sorry, I'm missing the words, because it comes from the Via Campesina and South America, because it was one of the first concept used. But I think we have to move on another term, another words.
I saw people popping in and out with the cameras. I think it's because the bandwidth was a little bit clogging. Was there, Mara, another question? And then maybe we can finish this moment.
Yeah, there was one more question. Would feminist Internet of Things devices, for example, be less designed to gather all our data and track all our movements? Would it be more considerate to protect our privacy? This type of, yeah, let's say feminist devices. And also, yes, if there is any research made by women on this topic of tracking, yeah, I guess you are asking the person who asked this from a feminist perspective. Yeah.
I think Andrea wants to say something about it.
Oh,
Sorry, it was or no, I don't understand. Andrea, it's a bit confusing. I think it's Andrea.
Andrea.
yes. I think so that a lot of work was done on digital rights, but we are still like a prehistorical age because um, rights at the moment are not a matter that the infrastructure take cares. So is like so is everyone of us has to take care of their rights in the internet. And I not agree with this perspective. It's like to say in a metaphor, in this moment the privacy is giving to us in the panorama of privacy. There are a lot of tools that are tools that the user can use. And I'm not agree with this perspective. I think that default is privacy in the internet, but in this moment is abuse is the default in the internet, and if you take care, you have to defend and you have to use tools. And I'm disagree, but we are living the same in the streets. If you want to defend yourself, you have to not walk alone and stay with your friends. And I think it's a really bad position in this moment.
Yeah, I would like to just add a little thing. I think the data tracking and data mining is a techno-capitalist economy model. I mean, in the question of how to sustain these infrastructures, you see a lot of the issues. How do you do it differently if you don't mine data? But I think that's the essential question, actually. We need to stop this extravist neo-capitalist model and try to find other creative ways of dealing with economic situation.
Okay. I don't know if I don't see another from the public. If you have any other question, please now in the chat. There is we have a little bit time because after us there is a break live, so we are not really clogging the next presentation. Maybe all would like to add something to these questions asked by the audience, or to our questions in general?
Not specifically, no. No, I was just like thinking like, okay, because like the session is quite condensed, 1 hour, and with all the work that we are doing daily, as in reflection and as in praxis. And I just wonder like, yeah, how one of the cores of this, how can we sustain this feminist internet? And I'm curious, and it would be nice to continue these conversations on other moments, I think. Because we still have a very precarious situation. But for now, maybe I can just wrap it up, and or does somebody else still wants to have a last word?
Well, I just quickly want to say that the privacy concerns and the problematics of tracking when it comes to feminist servers, I mean, feminist servers, they are autonomous, at least at the moment. They are autonomous mostly servers. I don't know American feminist server. If you do, let me know. So in that sense, being autonomous and anti-capitalistic, inherited, embedded kind of politics. Of course, there is no tracking, how you call it, mechanisms in the work we do. We, our own servers or the feminist servers in general, we know about. And next to that, to go a little bit more broader, when we talk about servers, autonomous servers, the users we can have, it's also a small pool of users. We cannot scale up to the big platforms like Twitter or other similar platforms. So being small and having difficulties we want to host makes the connection between the users and the sysadmins much more flowing, and concerns can be resolved faster, and also privacy, if either it's privacy concerns or trolling, attacks online, etc. Yeah. So thank you all our speakers, for their work and for joining us. It was really interesting. We have the recording also on our PeerTube, where we streamed.
Yeah, and maybe it's also important to announce this was part of this Fair New ID project, and the next thing that will happen is we will have some kind of residency on the server by Meltionary, and Meltionary is trying to develop a digital email server that compiles access requests and puts pressure on institutions to transfer their relationship to access, in specific for inclusion of disabled people. So that will happen in February, and till the project runs till end of May. So please stay also with us after this session.